Welcome, Sagittarius, to your high voltage Mars square Pluto deep dive video for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. From the 22nd of May through to the 30th, one of astrology's most highly charged, turbulent, and challenging planetary influences plays out for the first time in 2 years. The exact moment they come into a rasping right angle is the 26th. On the screen is the event chart from a purely Sagittarius viewpoint at that moment. I'm going to unpack all of this for you, and by the end of the video, you'll have a clearer understanding of how to navigate the next 10 days as far as your energy, work, relationships, and finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. So on the screen, Sagittarius is your event chart, and there's Mars in Taurus and Pluto in Aquarius. So let's just think about Mars. Mars is the ruler of two zodiac signs. The first of them is Aries. So here very much about initiation, action, willpower, strength, determination. But it can also be about desire, but it can also be protective. The warrior spirit of Mars in Aries comes out when we need to defend ourselves. Now, at the present time, Mars is in the Earth sign of Taurus, which is a fixed sign. And here he's less easy to be roused into anger and is more concerned with protectiveness, and particularly in terms of our life foundations, our possessions, our material needs, but most of all has an awareness to worth, but particularly financial worth. Now, Mars also rules the deep subterranean sign of Scorpio, which Mars and Scorpio are the co-rulers of. Here, Mars is much more complex, much less obvious, but still very willful and very much about desire, but a desire that's sometimes not entirely obvious. But in a more negative sense, this can stimulate emotions like jealousy, possessiveness, and control. Pluto, the higher octave ruler of the sign of Scorpio, is very much about transformation, but it can be about obsession. It can be about what gets deconstructed, reconstructed, and it's an incredibly potent influence. So in the sign of Aquarius, Pluto, very much the planet of the collective, is in the sign of how we all connect, of community. But because Aquarius is an air sign and also fixed like Mars in Taurus, it's not necessarily, even though it's got the innovative energy of Uranus as its modern ruler, not necessarily finding it easy to adapt to change. And because it can be a bit cool and rather detached, what we have got are new ways of connecting, principally through technology or surviving, but it can be a bit dystopian. Are we seeing a lot more people living on their own? Maybe able to connect through the internet, but not so much in a personal way. Now, the square between them, from your perspective, is amplifying the third house, how you think, your ideas, and your immediate everyday situation. Can be to do with your physical movement. That sixth house of Mars can be about our obligations and responsibilities, can be about our stamina. Mars here is good for that, and it can make it more robust in terms of your staying power, but it can also be about our obligations and responsibilities. Because Mars can be a bit more focused on what it needs as for itself, it actually can be very good in the sixth house and be productive on behalf of others too. But what I think this can do is create a lot of nervous energy, particularly if you feel conflicted around what you should be doing. So are you wanting to do something that's inspirational, as often is the case for Sagittarius, but you're caught up in something that's rather humdrum? So your idealism could be in some ways conflicted by the reality of your situation when it comes to the hours you're working, The job you're doing may be a little dull, but you may want to stay in it because of the money, Mars in Taurus. Whereas Pluto suggests with everything changing around us at such pace, adapting to that is somewhat challenging. So I think if you did feel quite on edge, maybe had some headaches, felt churned up over the next 10 days, that's not really going to be much of a surprise, particularly if you're doing something in your daily routines or around your obligations, which you're not enjoying. But let's think about the position of the two luminaries, taking a wider lens. So the sun is in Gemini, but for you, that may be chatting, but it's about relationships. The moon's in the 11th house of friendships and higher purpose, but also in an air sign, linking perfectly to the sun, but ironically, they both link back to Pluto. So we have a lovely grand air trine, and the sun and Pluto in a trine is when change and transformation, Pluto, can actually work well because we're accepting it and we're leaning into the change, we're embracing it. That change can be in our physical circumstances or deep within us. So you could be connecting to people who really are very uplifting to you. However, we need to be conscious that Mars is forging two very positive influences on this event to the North Node, which is a sextile. The North Node, your direction of travel emotionally. It's going to go on through to the end of July in Pisces. And also Mars forges a great link to the ruler of the sign of Taurus, Venus, in the 8th house, which has a scorpionic echo. So if there is someone that you're drawn to, that it feels right and it's practical, do you know, you're not going to be so hung up if some of their ideas don't quite chime with yours. And that actually, that Mars Venus uh, sextile can be really very lovely. So if you're wanting to be productive in a job or a role that you're enjoying, the chances are you can improve your financial situation and also have good relationships if the flow of communication is going backwards and forwards in a sweet way. But what about if you are in a relationship where you're not really aligning with Mars in your 5th house of romance in a square with Saturn in the 8th? It might be about intimacy, which obviously Mars and Pluto can be about, and it might be about money. So that could throw up a weakness. So how would this play out? Because they're both in fixed signs, I think there could be a tendency to not want to bend, not want to yield. Just to help with that, the mutable Sun is in a T-square with the mutable North Node and the mutable South Node. So even if something does feel stuck and you're not quite sure of what the tactic should be, just keep the flow of communication going, but also be open to the emotional domain as well. I think that Saturn in the sign of Pisces over those 2 years taught you a lot about surrender sometimes around maybe your own vulnerabilities. So there is a situation where maybe in the past you would have wanted to really show who was tougher and stronger. That won't necessarily serve your greater good in this situation. But if you have got new technology being imposed upon you in terms of your working situation and you're not enjoying that, your ability to convey and connect with people, which is very, very strong, is actually really amplified in a positive way by this chart. And remember, Mars square Pluto can give us tremendous willpower to overcome challenges if we set our mind to it. I'm going to summarize those 4 areas of energy: work, relationships, and finances next, Sagittarius. But just the say, I've slashed the price of my personal horoscope reports. There used to be buy two, get 30% off. It's now buy one and get three in total, three for the price of one. The one you pay for, your life roadmap report, helps us to understand the patterns that play out in our life and get a better understanding of how to work with those energies future forwards. And three, your 12 months transit and your draconic soul karmic analysis. That looks at astrology in a different way. Your chart can be very different to your nativity if your North Node is not late in Pisces or early in Aries. But but really helps to see things in a very profound way. Please see below for more. If you've yet to watch your Mars through Taurus 6-week forecast, that's on the screen. If you've yet to watch your Gemini 1-month Gemini season forecast, on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, it'd be an absolute pleasure. Please see my testimonials below. I work with people the world over. And if you'd like to take advantage of my free daily written horoscope fire to your device each morning, please do so. Get your early day celestial pit stop. So if you're doing something at the moment which is rather dull and rather repetitive, and you're not really enjoying it, you are being pushed in a way to release yourself from that situation. But because Mars in Taurus can be very much about security, that could be the conflict. But don't underestimate your ability to connect to people, Sagittarius. So if you are looking for a new job, you can connect in an extremely dynamic way. As far as your love life is concerned, if it is tense at the moment, it may be about who does or doesn't do things domestically. But Saturn in that square with Venus and Saturn in the opposition with the moon could make it feel a bit bleak. But try to keep the lines of communication open. If you're footloose and fancy free, that delightful link between Mars and Venus is very flirtatious and could be extremely significant. You also, from a financial viewpoint, could really gain early in the month of June. Pencil in the 9th. A big breakthrough could occur around a business situation, or maybe a payout on an insurance or a legacy at that time too, which could be delightful. As far as your energy is concerned, I think Mars is actually helping you a lot in that regard. So if you do feel a bit below par, it may be because it's about juggling things. And that's where the stubborn energy of having two very willful players in fixed signs needs to be overcome. It's been a pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. All the best, and see you again soon.